This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with Andrea Sartori, who is joining us all the way from Veneto, Italy. How are you today, sir?
Very good. I've been doing a tour of Canadians cities, and we are meeting the market per se. We're meeting journalists, wine critics, and customers. And we're very proud to show them our 120 years of history and culture into Verona wine.
So you were born into the family winemaking business, but originally it wasn't really wine that your great-grandfather started with, was it?
Actually, great-grandfather was a restaurateur and hotelier in Verona. He owned a hotel and restaurant San Pietro back in the days. Everything started around 1800. And Pietro bought Villa Maria, which is a 1700 centuries estate surrounded by vineyards. He was mainly a real estate investment, but when he bought the villa, he found a small winery, a wine cellar, that was mainly used from the previous family for home consumption.
Right.
And he decided to use that winery and wines produced there to have a consistent supply of wines for the restaurants, of great quality wines in the restaurant.
And how did such a small operation evolve into the enormous operation that you have today?
The man that made it happen for us was grandfather Regolo. Regolo was the one that decided that the wine would become the future of the family.
Right.
And before First and Second World War, he decided to sell the hotel and restaurants and put all the money into the winery. And he started to develop Sartori back then.
So now you export to 70 different markets. And how big is your annual production, approximately?
Our annual production is about 1.8 million cases, and we export to around 70 countries.
So what was the turning point there? How did you grow at such a rate?
We were growing steadily, but slowly up to 2000s, and then in 2000s we decided to merge with a co-op of farmers,
I see.
which gave us the opportunity to have control from grapes to bottle, and that gave us the opportunity and the confidence to grow the business and start to expand in many different markets. So since then we nearly tripled the company size.
Some people think of the word co-op as a bad thing. I don't myself at all. But the one question I always have for people who deal with co-ops is, how do you maintain a consistent quality with grapes and wines when they're coming from a co-op?
It's very simple because the co-op has full control on all the chain of productions. There is a great team of winemakers and agronomists that are out there consulting the farmers. And the huge platform that they represent give us the opportunity to cherry pick all the best area and the best batches out there. So the consistency is there, and the opportunity also is to grow quality every year.
Fantastic. One thing I've been asking many winemakers and principals the world over is, how seriously are wineries taking the concept of climate change in your region?
It's very serious. We have to. We have seen it happening basically from the beginning of 2000, especially 2003 was what I call the turn of the century.
Right. Yeah.
And that specific hot summer is now repeating itself.
We thought that would be a one-off.
Yeah.
And,
We thought it was one-off, but we were definitely wrong. And with the exceptions of 2014, that was a relatively cold and wet summer. I must tell that every other summer has been pretty similar to 2003. In fact, the weather people keep saying that we're breaking records every summer.
Yeah, it gets frightening, yes.
Yeah, it looks like it's not stopping.
Well, there was a wildfire in Scotland, in Edinburgh, on Arthur's Seat in the very first days of spring this year, and I thought something's going on there.
Yeah.
So speaking of 2003, we actually brought along, you've been tasting with an Amarone single vineyard 2003. How do you feel that wine has stood up to the test of time?
I brought this from our library because it represents exactly the style that it's going to be, and
in the future.
Yes,
yeah.
It's a richer wine. There is more structures, of course, more alcohol contents because of being such a hot summer. But it represents pretty much what has changed out there. And so we expect, unless the climate doesn't change again, we expect that this will be the pattern for the future.
What is being done in your region to combat the effects of climate change?
Many different things. The main point is to plant vineyards in higher altitude. The canopy management is being changed. We keep much more protections, especially because in the area 75% of the vineyards are trained with the pergola system. So we have the advantage to have the grapes protected by the curtains of leaves.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And then watering has become basically a standard. So we are trying to have water pretty much everywhere, which is not an easy task.
Now, climate change aside, what do you feel is in the future for your house?
I really don't know. I like David Letterman line saying, the global warming conference has been suspended by a snowstorm. So I think it's unpredictable, and to understand the pattern is going to be very difficult. I think we have a point because back in '98 we did an exercise which is called zonations, which was a full analysis of the situation out there of our vineyards, which includes soil compositions, rainfall, waterfalls, temperature mapping, and so forth. So I think we are in the positions to give all the possible advice to farmers how to deal with climate change, with vineyards treatments and procedures in a very precise way.
Speaking of vineyard treatments, you've been going through some experiments into organics.
We are, because we have such a big platform of vineyards. We are working a lot into organic wine productions. We are expanding. I like to recall that to convert regular vineyards into organic, you need 3 years.
Yes.
That is by law, so we're working a lot to move in that direction. I like to think that one day at least half of our production will be organically grown grapes, so we're working hard on that.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us in Toronto today. We really appreciate your time and your wines, and hopefully we'll see you perhaps over in Verona the next time.
Definitely, I'm waiting for you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.